Hello and happy Friday, and thanks for tuning in to RadioFreeRyanCliff.org. And this show in particular, correct me if I'm Norm, I'm your host, Norm. I'm thrilled to be here tonight with Ashley Manila. I'm thrilled to be here tonight. I didn't do my elocution exercises. See? Ashley, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so stoked you're here. You're just my very favorite neighbor. Don't tell all of the others who might be listening.
I think they already know.
I'm sure they must. Ashley is, she's an author. I think even more recent than that, she's a mom.
Around the same time they came out. Yeah, it was a kind of a race to is the book going to be done or is the baby going to be here first?
And she's a wildly successful food blogger. And I want to ask this because I'm confused. I know I follow you on Instagram.
Yeah.
I see you on Facebook. Mm-hmm. I saw, preparing for this, that you're on TikTok and Twitter also.
Yeah.
And you have a website.
I do.
Do you actually have like a blog too? Was that a different thing from all these other things?
That's a good question. So when I first started, social media was not the beast that it is now. So it was just the website, which I guess a lot of people call a blog.
Okay.
And I think 12 years ago, which is when I started doing it, it was sort of that. It was a super simple format, not a fancy design. And over the past decade, not only my website, but the industry in general has completely transformed. And now these blogs are full businesses.
Right.
And so the website is really the heart of the brand. But the social media is sort of how you get people to discover it. But the overall goal is always to get people to that website. And that is the blog, if that makes sense.
And what's the URL?
It is bakerbynature.com.
Bakerbynature.com, which is also the Instagram and the Facebook, and I'm guessing all of the others.
Yeah, at Baker by Nature is the handle for all of those channels.
And you mentioned your brand. What is your brand? Can you define that?
Yeah, I mean, Baker by Nature is obviously the name of the brand, and I really focus on not only developing recipes, but really trying to encourage cooks of all levels and bakers to feel confident enough to get in their kitchens and sort of discover that joy, and doing that through multimedia. So it's obviously started with recipes and photography, and as social media has evolved, now videos and live videos and all of that sort of stuff is really, at the end of the day, driven by my passion for food and sharing that with people. Obviously, the people who already cook and love food, it's really easy to get in, but there's a lot of people who feel like, oh, I could never do that. And so I'm always trying to break down recipes in the simplest format, even if it's complicated, to really encourage people like, you absolutely can do this. And find joy in it.
Right. Yeah, I read somewhere on some of your materials that your sentence, baking is extremely exacting and precise.
Yeah.
And that sentence, which sort of put you off, was followed by, but don't freak out because it's very accessible and you're going to be okay. And that's sort of what you're talking about, making it more welcoming to newbies.
Absolutely. And you're right. I mean, baking especially is so scientific. I would never beat around the bush with that because it is. And the more exact and precise you are, I think you know this, you're pretty skilled in the kitchen, especially with baking, the better your outcome is going to be. But the great news is that it's really simple foundation rules that if you know those and learn them, anyone can bake. And using a digital scale is my number one tip. Just weigh it out. It's so much easier than messing with the measuring cups and did I pack the flour? And it sounds more complicated, but it's really not.
No. Yeah, I don't have a digital scale.
I know what I'm getting you for Christmas.
Oh, good. That'd be amazing because so many recipes say 200 grams. I'm like, what is that? Then they're, about like a gallon of flour or something.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You need a scale.
Yeah, everybody says that. But also, for me, I don't mind just sort of a little bit of winging it every time to see how it's going to turn out, how it's going to be different.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing you must do a little of that sometimes when you're working on refining recipes and developing new stuff. You must sort of invite accidents into your process.
Absolutely. But, I think it's controlled accidents. So I try my best to not waste ingredients and and to be smart about tiny changes. And the thing with recipe development is once you have a base recipe, if you find a great cheesecake recipe, for instance, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can take that foundation and then just build upon it.
Right.
You can swap out, lemon juice for lime juice or orange juice and really create all of these like hundreds of new recipes from a great base recipe.
Gotcha.
So
it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And I like how you mentioned cheesecake,
Yeah.
which you said in some other interview is really your champion food, like
It
the
is.
best thing you make.
I love cheesecake. Yeah.
And you've mastered it to your taste.
I have, yeah. I mean, I worked at the Cheesecake Factory in my late teens,
Oh my
early
God.
20s.
Where?
In King of Prussia, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'd never get sick of it. I could eat cheesecake every day.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. I've had your cheesecake. It's amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
And so, but you make a bunch of different varieties of cheesecake.
I do.
Which one would you say is your favorite?
Oh God, I don't know. That's so hard because it's like so seasonal, like at the holidays I'd say pumpkin cheesecake, but if I
Right.
had to pick one, I have an extra rich and creamy cheesecake that's just divine. It's otherworldly.
And what makes it extra rich and creamy?
Lots of cream. Cream cheese
And cream.
and cream, yeah.
Okay.
And lots of eggs.
Right. Sounds amazing. I'm not sure
Super
if I've
simple.
had that one.
I don't think you have.
Now, your book, congratulations. It's a gorgeous book. The photography is beautiful.
Thank you.
And I'm guessing if people go to bakerbynature.com, they can find a way to order this book.
Absolutely, yeah.
it's-
There's a buy button at the top of the website.
Nicely done. It's called Home for the Holidays, and it has the creamy cheesecake recipe in there.
It has a creamy cheesecake recipe in there.
Not the ultimate creamy.
I think so many cookbook authors, especially bloggers, they put all of the recipes from their website in their book. And I just sort of felt like if I was creating a product I was going to charge people for, I wanted all of the content to be original. And so I really tried to create content that you can only get in the cookbook so that,
Love that.
it felt like in addition to something you can hold in your hand, there was added value.
Right.
But there is a really good New York style cheesecake with a Grand Marnier cranberry sauce in there.
Not too shabby.
Not too shabby.
In the book, reading through the book, it sort of shows perhaps another brand or where the brand Baker by Nature might be going, because there's sections on entertaining and evenings menus and stuff like that. And in case anybody hasn't gone to bakerbynature.com and seen, Ashley is just gorgeous on top of being a really fabulous baker. And so I'm looking at the book and all these beautiful pictures of you and stuff. I'm like, is that where you're going next, to be on TV, to have sort of like a Martha Stewart kind of brand?
Well, thank you. I'm blushing.
Good. For anybody at home, she's not blushing.
I am.
She is.
For me, it's always like, the book was really fun because it could be an evolution of what I've always felt and wanted for the website. I think you know this about me. I feel that cooking and baking and food in general go hand in hand with community.
Yeah.
And entertaining and having people over. And I just love combining all of that. So I would definitely love to see an evolution where the brand becomes more and more with menu, involved with having menus and just ideas overall for getting people together, not just cooking something for yourself or your husband, but making it an event and creating memories with those recipes.
Right. Yeah, you say somewhere in this book, Home for the Holidays, that your favorite thing about the holidays is home.
Yes.
And I guess that's what you're talking about, is sort of creating more of a homey kind of home for people. I
Yeah.
could totally see that, by the way. You move over Martha Stewart. Here comes Ashley Manila.
I won't speak ill of Martha, but yeah, I think everyone sort of dreams of having the evolution of having a show or whatever that means. I have a small child now and I have another one on the way. So I don't know what the future necessarily looks like, the near future, but I would
Right.
love to one day be more involved in an overall creative brand that way.
Right. And you do some videos. I see stuff
Yeah.
on YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
and you're great. You're personable and as I said, pretty and stuff.
Thank you.
So is part of doing them sort of thinking like, oh, well, I want to be out there as an on-air personality?
Yes and no. I don't ever feel like I do it for me. I always try to reach out. Instagram's great because you can really ask people direct questions, like your audience. And I know people learn easier that way. They feel more excited now with it used to be photographs, and now people want to see it live. They want to see it being created by a human. And so my thought behind it is if this is how I'm going to get people and reach them with my content, then I have to evolve and do that as well.
Right.
Because you can't just stick with what you like doing. I'm more comfortable, I think, behind the camera, but people love to see personality and authenticity. And so I'm more than happy to accommodate and do that. And I enjoy the challenge as well.
Right. And when you started, I'm guessing you were taking all your own photos.
Yes.
And for this book, in the acknowledgments, you thank the photographers.
Yes.
So did a set of photographers shoot all of the stuff in your book?
They did. They shot everything. Joni Simon is an amazing food photographer and also teacher. And it just felt sort of like kismet because I learned food photography from her on YouTube.
Oh, really?
Like,
that's great.
Over the past decade, I was watching her YouTube videos. And so my whole journey through food photography was with her, never meeting her. And then I reached out to her to see if she'd be interested in shooting my book. And she said yes.
Oh, that's so sweet.
And so it was really cool and just felt so full circle, you know? And they did an amazing job and really were always willing to go the extra mile to make it feel like my vision and not their vision.
That's so sweet and lovely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let me back up now. How did the Baker by Nature brand begin?
I was living in the East Village, studying to be an actress and nannying, and just sort of in that weird in-between time of like a 22-year-old where you're kind of finding yourself. And I just really started loving cooking and baking more and more. I was also pretty broke, so I couldn't afford to go to all of the fancy places that a lot of people were going in the city.
Right.
And I thought it was really fun to try and recreate, you know, like Magnolia bakery cupcakes or this famous brownie. And it just sort of evolved from there. It wasn't an industry or business back then. I just discovered food blogs and thought, I'll start one. And went out and bought a camera and opened a domain.
And it was Baker by Nature?
And it was Baker by Nature, yeah.
And how did you come up with that name?
At the time, my boyfriend, now husband, and I just sat around for hours coming up with different names. And he was a great sounding board for me because I think I would come up with certain things and he'd be like, you know, it could be interpreted this way or that way. And just like lots of brainstorming. And finally, Baker by Nature just
stuck.
Felt right. Yeah, it stuck and still kicking.
And so now you've got a website.
Yes.
You've got a nice camera and some nice lights.
Yeah.
And you're making up recipes.
Mm-hmm.
And you're putting them up on your website.
Yes.
And 2 people are seeing them.
Yeah.
What happened next? How did you build this audience? I mean, for instance, I just looked on Instagram. You've got like 800,000 followers. There's ever so slightly more than I do.
It definitely took a long time. I think definitely the fact that I'm so passionate about it and just obsessed with not only the creation of the content, but I love the whole industry. I know a lot of people talk about blogger burnout, and I've just never felt that way. I've always felt like I wish I could have multiple of me's to continue doing more work. I love it. I'm obsessed with it. I think it's so cool. And so I went to food blogger conferences, which used to be a thing. I don't know if they're still doing them after, post-COVID, a lot of stuff changed. But that was a huge game changer for me. I met my best friend, who's also a food blogger, and just a lot of really smart, savvy people who were like, you need to get on social media and you need to start sharing your content on Pinterest, which drives traffic to your website. And that's really how I learned all about monetizing a website and being able to take it from being a really fun hobby to my full-time job.
Just hats off to you.
Thank you.
And in 12 years.
In 12 years,
which seems
yeah.
pretty fast. So was there a year where it just went through the roof, where your numbers really went from 50 to 50,000 to 400,000 or?
Yeah, I think for me, I was doing it. I did start making money and it sort of became a business while I was still working as a nanny. And I was pretty apprehensive to take the jump to quit and do it full time.
Right.
And the stars sort of aligned that my husband got a job at Bard. And we decided to make a really large life change, which was to leave the city, to leave Brooklyn, to move up here to the Hudson Valley.
Oh, wow.
And he would be working. And so we figured, let me just try it for a few months and see if I can really do this. And within 2 months, I had like quadrupled everything. It was the best decision for me.
How did you quadruple everything?
I feel like I was just in it. I was like,
Right.
I had a few days of this weird purgatory, because I was like, oh, I'm just home. I'm just here. And then this fire was just lit where I realized I had all day and really night. I didn't have kids yet to just work. And my passion for photography, I think my food photography definitely blew up on social media. Sharing that on Instagram and on Pinterest just really started driving traffic to the website, and it just sort of took off from there.
And when you moved up, did you move into the house where you live now?
No, we
Okay.
lived on South Street
Oh,
in a back apartment unit
okay.
with no natural light. I had a mini meltdown when we got in there, and I learned artificial food photography lighting and bought all these crazy lights.
Nice.
And it ended up being one of those things that it was the best thing ever because I really made artificial light my trademark. This like dark and moody, which I never would have done had I have had a beautifully lit, sunny apartment. So it really
Wow.
worked out.
Huh.
Yeah.
And still in the photographers for your book, did they sort of honor that stylistic trademark of yours?
I think they did. Like even the cover is the fireplace and it has feeling. It's not just what was very popular when I was starting out was the bright white. Everything was white and blown out and it was just the food. And that's great as well. But I think I was forced, and I think that's the way I would have gone had I had a huge sunny apartment
Right.
because everyone else was doing it.
Like,
And I
put that muffin in the morning sun window.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so I was sort of forced. I was like, okay, I don't have any light. Well, lean into the darkness.
Right.
And it's still my preferred way of shooting now. Now my house has lots of natural light, and I buy blackout curtains. And I love the
That's
dark,
so funny.
moody. Yeah.
Right. Huh.
Lemon's lemonade,
Yeah, the picture's gorgeous. And you have drink recipes in here too.
I do.
Now, you brought a drink. Is that recipe in this book?
It is not.
Uh-huh.
This is actually a recipe that I've been testing for my website this summer.
Oh,
It's a
nice.
strawberry basil whiskey smash.
That sounds so good.
Fingers crossed.
What do we have to do to have one of those right now?
Just put some ice in a cup and pour it over.
Okay.
Or I can do it for you if
Okay,
you want me to.
I don't want to reach. I know I'll spill everything. Say it again. The whiskey smash.
It is a strawberry basil whiskey smash.
That sounds so good. So, all right, I'll leave you be while you're pouring this. Actually, I'm not going to leave you be. I got more questions. How often do you post on your social media, on your various outlets?
Social media every day.
Every day.
Yes.
And often twice or three times a day?
It really depends on the day, on the season. If it's the holiday season, and for me, I mean between Halloween and Christmas, then I'll be posting anywhere from 3 to 10 times a day because people are online
Oh,
and
wow.
they're looking for recipes. That's where it doesn't matter if it's the same recipe because the wonderful algorithm doesn't show everyone. So you
Right.
really want to be posting and circulating that content so that people are finding it. I mean, I'll post a pumpkin cheesecake 15 times and people will be emailing me like, do you have a pumpkin cheesecake?
Right.
And so it's just from a business perspective, the best way to really circulate that content is to post consistently versus the off season where if I don't really have anything fresh, I'm not going to be just posting for the sake of posting because that can be annoying as well.
Right. And so did you ever work with a professional like search engine optimizer person?
I have not.
Uh-huh.
But I know a lot about SEO just from my own research and conferences I've been to. I have an ad agency and they also give us tons of resources for SEO, which is really helpful because it is a huge part of running any website.
What do you mean you have an ad agency?
I have an ad agency that places ads on my website.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, and pays you for the right to do that.
Right. So I pay them, they pay me. So they'll take a percentage of my total ad income because they are the agent and they're handling all of these deals, which I'm very grateful that I'm not doing. You know, I'm glad that I'm not trying to be like, hey, Disney or Kohl's, do you want to run ads on my website? So they handle all of that and the negotiations for how much the ad will cost and how long it will run and all of that stuff.
And when somebody buys an ad on your website, I mean, how many hits does your website get a month or a week or a year?
It gets
or whatever?
between 2.5 and 4 million hits per month.
Okay, stop it right there. That's nuts. And cheers. I'm going to raise a toast to that.
Cheers.
And you're not drinking. What the heck? Why not?
I am pregnant.
Congratulations.
Thank
Let's
you.
drink to that.
But I have a very delicious non-alcoholic beer
Nice.
from Athletic Brewing. They're really good. Not sponsored.
Oh, this is delicious. Well, so sponsored. I mean, do you get sponsored by people?
I have in the past. I feel really grateful that I don't have to do that anymore. A lot of sponsored work often feels like you're working for someone and you're not, running your own business is great because you run the business. And a lot of times you don't get that same respect when you're working for a large brand. They treat you like you're one of their employees, not like you're you're doing them a service and they're paying you a fee,
Right.
but you don't work for them per se. And so I'm very picky about the brands that I work with. I have a few brands that I've worked with for years and I love them and it's great. But for the most part, I choose to save my sanity and usually say no.
That's good.
Yeah.
And I don't recall ever seeing on Instagram this thing on your Instagram that I see on others where people are clearly making a plug for some product. And it's like, ugh. And you don't seem to do that because you're making money on the advertising on the site.
Right.
That's a lot of visits.
It
to
is.
your site.
I'm very grateful that that's the main source of my income.
Uh-huh.
But sponsored work can be amazing. Like I said, I still work with some great sponsors. I work with an Italian food brand and they're a dream. It's the perfect. I love Italian food. They're so great to work with and it's just a cordial, friendly relationship. And I already used them for years.
Uh-huh.
For me, it's like if I'm not already sharing something with my readers, I'm most likely not going to just be like, oh yeah, this would be great to make some money. So I'm going to now say it's my favorite thing ever.
Right.
There has to be an authentic connection to that brand.
Yeah.
Otherwise, not only do I feel like I could lose followers because they could see through it, but I don't enjoy doing it.
Right.
It just that doesn't feel great.
Right. Well, yeah, and it doesn't look great to people like me. So who's the Italian food company who you work with?
Stellala?
Huh, I don't know.
They make great pasta, You've had their pasta at my parties and stuff.
Uh-huh.
Their products are amazing. They do cheeses, olives, and they sell in grocery stores, but you can also order online.
Uh-huh. That's great.
Yeah.
I mean, what a treat to find a product that you really love and they're like, hey, we want to sponsor you.
Oh, that feels like you're just winning. You're like, wow, this is amazing. And when that happens, it just feels like the stars aligned and...
So it seems like you really have a handle on all of the metrics of the different media and social media that you're in.
I try.
And do you work with a company that helps you sort of, look at all of that and figure out what's going on?
I do all that myself, which is a lot.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, good for you. All right, back to your youth. Did you cook when you were a kid?
I did. So my mom was a terrible cook. Like, really bad. And not her fault because she just, she had a lot of kids and it wasn't her thing.
How many kids were there?
4 of us.
Okay.
But so around 8, I'd had enough. I loved food. I loved eating. And one night she was laying on the couch taking a nap and I decided to go in and sneak and make dinner.
How old were you?
I was 8.
Okay.
And she woke up and at first was like, oh my God, did you cut off an arm? And
Right.
as her and my brother started eating it, they were like, wow, this is really good. And that just sort of became my chore, which I felt like it was the biggest like won over, because I was like, oh my God, this gets to be my chore now. I get to pick out the groceries and cook, and my brother has to do the dishes. Ha 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 ha.
And you all were homeschooled? Is that what I heard?
So I was homeschooled the longest.
Okay.
My mom had offered it to us as an option when some of her friends were homeschooling. And my brother really did not enjoy it. And so she let him. It was never like, I'm ripping you guys out of school. I loved it. And so I was homeschooled all throughout, mainly middle school and all of high school.
Okay.
And I loved it.
And you were cooking the whole time?
I was cooking. It's always funny to think back. My mom tried to convince me to go to tech school for like catering or being a chef.
Yeah.
I was like, no, I just want to do it for joy. I'd never do this for a career. Fast forward. Usually your parents are right.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So when I started, a food website, my mom's like, that's funny.
That's so sweet. Told you so.
Exactly.
And my mom loved to like give me the told you so. And like, oh, isn't that just karma biting you in the butt, boy? Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're cooking for your mom and your
Right.
siblings in King of Prussia? Is that where you were?
Yeah, we lived in King of Prussia.
And what is that? Is that like a little city outside of Philadelphia or a suburb? Or?
Yeah, it's a suburb about, depending on traffic, 30 to 45 minutes from the heart of Philadelphia. It's a nice area. It's, it's fine.
And the family's liking your cooking, and you're getting a lot of positive reinforcement, and you're starting to think maybe mom's got a point, but you couldn't give it to her yet. So when you left the house, where did you go, and what'd you go to do? Did you move to New York to be a nanny?
Not right away. I got my own apartment, and I was working at the Cheesecake Factory, and I met my now husband. He was a bartender, and he was moving to New York City.
Where was the Cheesecake Factory? In King of Prussia or Philadelphia?
That was in King of Prussia.
Okay.
But his dad owned a bar that all of the cheesecakers would go to after work. And that's how we met. And so when we met,
the cheesecakers.
and started dating, I found out that he was moving to New York City to do his PhD like a month after we started dating. And so I was definitely that crazy chick that was like, cool, I'm leaving and moving to New York as well.
Wow.
Not together. I had my own apartment.
Okay.
But it was the best decision I ever made.
That's, it's ridiculous. But what better reason to move than love?
I always wanted to move to New York. And then I just felt like that was a perfect push.
Right.
Someone you knew and you really liked, and I wanted to see where the relationship went. And so, yeah, I got an apartment in East Williamsburg, which was really Bushwick. And I got a nanny job. I started studying to be an actress. That's what I thought I wanted to be. And was committing my life to doing that. And the food blog just sort of came out of that, because I'd go home and I was tired. And, New York City can definitely leave you feeling searching for purpose or lonely. It evokes lots of different feelings. And for me, that often left me in the kitchen, cooking for friends, throwing cocktail parties. And I just really fell in love with it. And when I discovered other food blogs, it was just a no-brainer to start a blog. I didn't think twice about it. I mean, I literally went out and spent all of the money I had on a camera and opening a website, not thinking it would ever be anything more than just something that I would enjoy doing.
And what was the first food blog you saw?
Joy the Baker.
Joy the Baker?
She's a great writer and beautiful photographer. She lives in New Orleans, at the time in California, but just, I don't know. It just was like one of those truly life-changing moments where I'm looking at this and I'm like, this exists? I could do this?
But you started doing it just for kicks, just for
fun,
not thinking like this would be a career, because you're studying to be an actress.
Right.
And where were you doing that studying?
I was studying with, what's his name? Bruce Orstein. Have you ever heard of him? He's a acting coach. I think he was John Travolta's acting coach for a little while. Like there's a little studio right off of Astor Place, and I'd go there on Wednesday nights for acting class.
And did you audition for plays and movies and stuff?
I did. I feel very lucky that I got to do it, and I loved acting class.
Uh-huh.
But I also realized really early on, like, wow, this is not what I want to do. Even
Right.
though I started getting little bit parts and student films, and I just realized I didn't have that same passion that I feel when I'm making a recipe or photographing. It just wasn't the same thing. I was like, I just can't wait to go home and do that other thing.
Yeah.
But I feel really grateful. So many people don't ever get the opportunity to say. They just look back and like, oh, I wanted to be an actress, but I never got to do it. I'm like, I got to do that.
That's so great.
Yeah, so I feel very blessed.
And baking, I've always thought bakers are some of the biggest show-offs around. They're like, hey, look what I did. Here it is. Isn't that great? And decorating and stuff. Do you feel at all that any truth to that? That in your baking, you're kind of a show-off? I know, tough question.
Yeah, I don't know. I consider myself I'm pretty hard on myself.
Yeah.
And so, of course, it is a sense of showing off, but I feel like I save it for the really, really good things. Like I would never share even something with you that I didn't think personally blew me away. But yeah, I guess it is a sense of, you drop something off and you're like, hey, I made that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I could see that.
So sweet. It is such a banner day when you or the both of you like drop something off on my porch. It's really
it's fun.
Yeah. Thank you. It's just delightful. So at some point you left the babysitting,
Mm-hmm.
you left the acting, and you were making a few bucks in this thing. And I feel like I'm recapping here. And it took off. You never looked back.
Yeah, about 3 years into doing it for a hobby, I decided to take the leap full time.
Again, that's so fast.
It is. I think it was partly because the industry was super new. So I got in
Right.
at the
Oh,
perfect
Oh,
time.
that's good.
There were a few other there were some big names, but it was still such a new industry. Now it's really oversaturated. Everyone in all online industries, everyone's like, oh, I want to be an expert gamer or, a food blogger.
Right.
So I got in at the right time, and being able to do it full time, I think a lot of people waited. To me, that made all the difference of just completely dedicating. It was like now or never.
And I'm guessing your husband was very supportive.
Extremely supportive. He still is. I mean, he's always the one pushing me to, I don't want to say be better, but, to keep going. And it can be easy when you work for yourself to just think like, oh, it's not that important. There's so many other things going on.
Well, for me, but if you've got 2 million visitors to
Yeah.
your site and 800,000 subscribers to your Instagram page,
Yeah.
There's an audience that's really counting on you in a way.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so do you feel that? You feel a little bit of pressure to...
I don't. And I think that's something I've gifted myself because, I said earlier, a lot of bloggers have burnout, or they get this extreme pressure that they feel like, I have to answer all of these people. And I guess in my mind, I know there's no way I can answer every comment, every DM, every email. There's so many different social media platforms. And so I do try my best. And I really try to do my best in the content of my website, answering all of those questions. But I don't put that pressure on myself to be like, oh, I'm failing if there were 6 comments I didn't answer, especially when most of the answers are, if you read the recipe there.
Right.
I just don't think, and some people hire assistants to do that. And I don't know, I just never felt that pressure to do that.
That was my next question. But not pressure, but to take pressure off of you. I mean,
Yeah.
would you ever consider hiring an assistant to do those kinds of things?
If it were the right person, I have had assistants in the past.
Uh-huh.
It's very difficult to find someone who not only cares as much, which is understandable because it's not their business, but who can take instruction, can handle constructive criticism. And so I really enjoy doing it. I enjoy being the person that connects through social media. And
Right.
I feel okay. A lot of times the questions are so repetitive that I feel okay if I answered one person, that they can read that answer and feel like I'm answering them as well.
Right.
To set up the precedent that, I see some bloggers do this and they're like, oh, I answer every single question and DM. And I think you must be on your phone all the time.
Right.
And to me, the most important part is the creative aspect, like creating killer recipes and capturing them beautifully. That's the most important thing, and everything else comes afterward.
So your favorite recipe is the creamy cheesecake.
One of them.
What are some of the favorite recipes for your audience?
The cheesecake is, I would say, my top 3 recipes.
Okay.
And then a lot of my savory recipes do really well. So, like I have a pan-seared cod in a white wine tomato basil sauce, fresh tomato penne alla vodka, New Orleans beignets are really popular. But the savory, I think because people cook every night, those really get made over and over again. And cocktails. My spicy jalapeno margaritas are very popular.
This cocktail is so dang delicious.
I'm happy you enjoy it.
I'm on my 3rd right now. So I'm going to start asking you more of the same questions over and over again. You'll understand why. Really, really good. You mentioned earlier when you first started cooking, your mom woke up and went in. You hadn't cut off your arm.
Mm-hmm.
One of my listeners and one of your neighbors wrote in, how many times a year do you cut your finger off, or slice a piece of your finger off, or burn yourself? I mean, the kitchen is a dangerous place.
Touching the wood table. I can't remember the last time I cut or burned myself.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, if it happens now, blame your neighbor Jonathan.
Burkhart.
That was his question.
How did I know?
Yeah. He also asked, in the typical month, how many times does your smoke alarm go off?
I actually disabled the smoke alarm above my kitchen because...
Don't tell your insurance company.
Oh, psych.
Yeah.
It would go off. I mean, I would be making sauteing spinach and it would go off. So we had to move it, but never. No.
Wow. Very nice.
Yeah.
And how is it possible that you and your husband are not each 400 pounds?
Genetics.
Ugh.
We walk a lot. And obviously we're not eating everything I'm making, especially the sweets. We'll enjoy a piece of cake. I think all of the neighbors in our neighborhood could attest that a lot is shared.
Yeah, it's nice. You seem to spread around the goodies with the neighbors.
Spread around the calories.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
But when you bake, I mean, do you get rid of all the leftovers, all the stuff that's that you're not using for the photo shoots? You find homes for it?
For the most part, yeah.
And again, what a treat. And that sounds like one of the reasons you went into it.
Yeah.
Is being able to share this creativity with your family and your friends. All right, I'm going to go back to questions from anonymous leader.
Okay.
Anonymous listener. You already answered these. Oh, here we go. How much flour do you keep in your cabinet? How much ingredients do you have? At all points in time, do you have 100 pounds of flour and 20 pounds of butter?
I would say I usually have 20 pounds of flour on hand at all times, which is just 4 large bags.
Right.
I usually have 6 dozen eggs, or 5 to 10 pounds of butter, depending on the season. I have a mini fridge, which sort of acts as my business fridge because it became overwhelming, sort of trying to sift through where's the leftover pasta behind all of these eggs and, pounds of cream cheese and butter. So the mini fridge really helps. I just put all of that stuff there. But yeah, for me, it makes sense just to have it on hand and buy it in bulk.
Right.
So that I don't, go to make something and I'm in the middle of it and the oven's preheated and I'm like, oh, I don't have cream cheese.
Do you freeze your butter or your cream cheese?
Only if I'm making something like a pie crust. Or scones that calls for it.
So you don't keep it frozen?
I don't know.
Is there a particular reason?
I don't love the way that it feels when I take it out. I always feel like it loses some. I know it doesn't, but it feels like it loses fat content. I just don't enjoy working with it. I know it's just a personal preference.
And do you use one kind of butter for all your cooking and baking, or do you use different kinds?
I use different kinds, but I do use high quality butter. So either Cabot, Kerrygold has great butter. Kate's butter is good. I try to find a middle line. I used to use Kerrygold all the time, but that's not what home bakers for the most part are using. And so the issue with that is that European style butter is higher in, fat content.
Right.
So my recipe's coming out one way, but their recipes are coming out another way. So it is important as a recipe developer to think about what's the most popular flour? What kind of flour are people buying? Because I love King Arthur flour, but King Arthur flour is higher in protein. So my cakes are coming out, a different way because the protein content in that flour is higher versus Gold's or just Top's version, your whatever your grocery store version's flour is.
I never even thought about protein in flour.
I writing a cookbook, I learned a lot, like working with food stylists and people so they create, my cookbook team, they made all of those recipes in another state and photographed them.
Wow.
And so it was amazing. I wasn't there. I wasn't there for any of the photography, the photo shoots. So it was incredible to make the same. I mean, I'm extremely precise. I'm like, no, I know this cake recipe works. Trust me, I made this 30 times. And they're like, something. And we realized it was like the flour protein in, they're using gold medal flour and I'm using King Arthur flour. It's these simple things but it's great for me to know because now not only can I be more mindful of that, but I can educate my readers when they come to me and say, hey, I did this, something didn't turn out right.
Right.
I cannot just say the normal response is like, oh, did you put too much flour? It's like, well, what kind of flour are you using?
Right. So you can't use super fancy stuff that's inaccessible to most of your readers.
Not for, I don't for developing recipes.
Okay.
I still will for my own recipes because I really do think that quality, you can have a great recipe. And I think if you use kind of garbage ingredients, I can taste the difference, like personally, in really quality eggs and the most generic store-bought eggs.
Right.
And obviously eggs are so expensive right now that I too am just buying whatever the cheapest, dozen of eggs are.
Right.
But you can taste the difference. A great egg is so rich. The yolk is bright orange and you taste that, especially in something like a pound cake that has 10 eggs.
Right.
You're tasting the quality of those eggs.
Yeah. So do you assume that people are making your recipes with gold medal and Land O'Lakes?
Yes. Or, something that's just generally available at most grocery stores.
Right.
Not something that, and that isn't super expensive because I have to be conscious of the fact that I'm baking as a business and that is a separate cost. It's not always out of my own, pocketbook.
Right.
And that people are going to the grocery store and they're trying to make a cake that's already pretty expensive. My cheesecake, for instance, calls for 5 bricks of cream cheese.
Right.
And, Philadelphia cream cheese, I think at the store was $4.99 the other day. You're like, wow, that's what, $30 just on cream cheese.
Right.
So I do try to be mindful of that and not come off, pretentious saying you must use, because even I roll my eyes at recipes like that. I'm like, I'm going to use 2 Rosso tomatoes. That's what I have in my pantry.
Right.
Whatever.
That's interesting. So I read in your book, you were talking about growing up that your mom was sort of running the house. And
Yeah.
she would make holidays extra special.
Yeah.
And make cookies and stuff and let you taste the batter of the cookies.
Yeah, she was super cool.
And I grew up tasting the batter of the cookies.
Okay.
And then I got older and everybody's like, you can't do that. You're going to get
Salmonella
trichinosis
poison. Yeah.
or salmonella or E. coli or whatever. What about that stuff? And do you have any information on that?
I mean,
You never got sick.
I never got sick. Do I still eat cookie dough? Yes. To each their own. If it's something that you're super concerned about, it's really the flour, not the eggs, that you have to be concerned about. It's bacteria in the flour.
Really?
Everyone thinks it's the eggs, but you really don't have to be too concerned about raw eggs, especially if they're high quality.
Right.
But yeah, if I'm doing like a vegan cookie dough, I'll toast the flour. That's something you can do if you're really concerned about it. If you toast flour at like 300 degrees for 20 minutes, it will kill off all the bacteria.
What bacteria? For starters,
I
bacteria in
can't
flour?
dive into that, but you can look it up online. There is
Okay.
bacteria in flour that can get you sick.
Okay.
You should not eat raw flour.
But if you're eating raw cookie dough,
You are eating raw flour.
unless you toast your flour first,
Right.
when did you start doing that? So you're basically pasteurizing your flour.
Exactly. And I don't do it. I mean, I just sneak, a bite of the cookie dough still. I'm lazy, but I have a vegan cookie dough truffle recipe. And I knew if I didn't toast the flour, people would be like, you can't eat raw flour. So that's when I did the research and figured out the right temperature and the right timing to be able to create that recipe safely, that everyone could feel like it's okay to enjoy this vegan, and there's no eggs, so you don't have to worry about that either. And you can just eat balls of cookie dough dunked in chocolate.
Huh.
Yeah.
And does it change the taste of the flour at all?
I don't think so.
And what'd you say, 200, 300 degrees?
300 degrees,
For 20
yeah.
minutes.
I think 20 minutes, yeah.
Huh. And how much do you do at a time? Just enough for the recipe?
I think I do the max like 3 cups. Whatever you can have on a baking sheet,
Uh-huh.
it can sort of get like evenly cooked. You don't want like a
Right.
huge layer because obviously then it's going to take longer for the heat to penetrate
Right.
the flour in the middle.
So
And
you
should
don't stir it in the
you
middle.
know,
I
like
see.
if you're really concerned about it.
Uh-huh.
I definitely
don't-
think there's different levels of
I don't-
concern on this.
Yeah. Well, one last question. You may or may not know the answer to this. How does that change the flour for people who are like gluten-free, who claim that flour is making them sick and making them whatever?
I mean, it's
Is
not
that-
going to change the flour for them at all.
Not at all. Okay.
But they could use
That's too bad.
Now there's like 1-for-1 gluten-free flours that I think work pretty well.
Uh-huh.
I'm not experienced in gluten-free baking at all. And so I really try not to give advice on anything that I don't consider myself an expert in.
Right.
But I do know that King Arthur and Bob's Red Mill have great like 1-for-1 substitutes. You don't have to put a bunch of other stuff in there.
Right.
And a lot of my readers will leave comments saying, I used this flour and it worked great as a substitute, which is always great for me because I won't write on my own that it works great because
Right.
I have no idea. So it's really nice when people who do have different lifestyles or intolerances test a recipe on their own and it comes out great and they leave it in the comments and then other people can follow suit.
That's just amazing. So you never ever thought of going to culinary school or any of that?
I did think about going to culinary school, and when I was living in New York City, I took several classes at ICE, which is the International Culinary, I think it's called ICE, at some culinary institute. And I didn't find it especially helpful, and it was extremely expensive.
Uh-huh.
But I think I always thought I would, and then I just hit a point where I was like, yeah, I'm probably not going to do that. But I'd still do it for fun.
Yeah. And did you ever think of having like a brick and mortar store, a
You know,
bakery?
I never did until maybe like this month. There's so much changing online with artificial intelligence and social media platforms that I do once in a while think like, oh, it'd be really nice to bring more humanity to this, to share this with real people that can come in and enjoy this. And obviously I love this community. And so the idea of having a little, larder,
Right.
shop where you can share that, but probably not in the foreseeable future.
Right. I mean, you could sell stuff like here at the
Yeah.
Epicurean
Hmm.
or at Samuel's. I know they get stuff,
Yeah.
or pastries. I think
Absolutely.
Breadalone makes all of their own stuff. I'm not sure.
Yeah, they do.
Huh. That sounds like a big pain in the butt.
Yeah.
To have some sort of retail thing.
Yeah. I've
But-
been offered in the past from establishments like to bake goods and bring them over, but honestly, there's a lot that goes on into my business already that
Right.
that would just be a whole extra burden. I'm not quite ready to take on.
Yeah, smart, especially with another kid coming.
Yeah.
Coming Now, one section on your website says "Work with me."
Mhm.
I saw that. I'm like, oh, I wonder what that is. And it's for brands who want to sponsor you or advertise with you and stuff.
Yep.
How often do you get clicks on that and inquiries to partner?
Yeah, I don't have data on the clicks, but I'd say I get anywhere from 5 to 10 emails a day.
Holy crap!
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, it's a lot of them people still reach out wanting free work. They're like, "Hey, can you develop a recipe for me
Right.
and promote my products and we'll share you on our social media." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not going to do, like 30 hours worth of work for some free cheese."
Right.
But there are once in a while things that really pan out well. And it's always great to connect with brands either way. And sometimes it's just trying new products, which is always fun.
Right. And they'll send you a bunch of products. You'll try them out.
Yeah, and you just
next
try them out
batch.
and you're like, hey, I really enjoyed this. And you share it on Instagram and that's amazing. I love that. It's great to authentically connect with brands you've never heard of
Right.
and fall in love with new products. And it feels like Christmas when you're like, oh, this brand has sent me all this stuff. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I love that. So when you mention it, is it just the goodness of your heart? Will they pay you some for that?
If it's not a sponsored post, if I'm not like, if
Right.
there's not a contract in place, then
It's just
it's just that I really enjoyed it. And I'll never commit to that in an email. I just say, if I enjoy this,
right.
then I will share.
Right.
Because, like I said, I won't even share getting paid if I don't authentically enjoy something. So I'm certainly not going to,
Right.
do it just because I tried out your lemonade or whatever the product is.
But that's great. That's how friends do it. Like, hey, I tried this thing. You got to check it out. It's really amazing.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
there's no money changing hands.
And there's
so
no money. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's just lovely. All right. More questions. When you were younger, and you talked about your mom. What about your dad? Was he around?
No, I have no relationship with my dad. He,
Okay.
he left when we were really small and then sort of reemerged at different points in my life, but it just never really clicked for me.
Right.
I was a mama's girl, and
So sweet. And your siblings, same thing? Were they all mama's girls?
no, my brothers
Oh, your
in
brother,
particular is very close with my dad now, and they have a relationship, and
Oh,
that
that's
makes me
nice.
so happy for them.
Right.
But, I think everyone has their own inner wiring.
And are your siblings creative as well?
My brother is a musician, and my other brother loves to write.
Uh-huh.
And my sister's also a singer. So I think we all they don't do it for a career, but they all have something artistic about them, as I think most people do somewhere.
And did they get that from one of your parents?
I really don't know. It's interesting because I wasn't raised by my dad, but I can't deny he was actually a photographer and a chef when my mom met him. And so it's just so funny
Okay.
that
Well, that's
I
interesting.
I wasn't raised by him. There's no way I could give him credit for. And yet,
No, but one of the things I suspect you'll see I did when I started having kids in my life is how much stuff seems like it's not nurture. They just have this nature. I'm like, wait a minute. I
Mhm.
didn't like put that in them. They didn't see me doing that.
Right.
And then they have it anyway.
Yeah.
And so quite possibly
It's interesting.
it is super interesting. You want to talk about that more?
Not really.
Yeah. Yeah, that is psychologically rich. And so do you get together with the siblings often? Do they live near here?
They all live in Philadelphia.
Okay.
Not really. I'm closest with my one brother, and he has twins, and they're adorable. But it's tough. We live here, and I don't know. For me, family is always a challenge. It's my family. My husband's family is great. I love spending. It sounds terrible, but I love spending time with them.
Well, it's simpler. They're not your family.
They're not mine.
Right.
Yeah, and I love other people's families too. I'm like, oh, we're going to your grandmom's for a weekend. Amazing.
That's
But,
so sweet.
my siblings, we've always had sibling rivalry, and we still have it. It's fun, and it's like you're together and then you miss them, but
And where are you in the birth order, did you say?
I am the second born.
Okay.
We have like a large gap. So my sister and I are 11 years apart,
Right.
and then my brother and I are back to back.
Right.
And then the youngest brother is another 11 years. So we're all over the place.
Wow.
Yeah.
So back to you first going in the kitchen.
Mhm.
Did you use a recipe book or you just sort of winged it? You
Oh
watched
my
your
God,
mom.
no. I mean, this was like, I wouldn't even call this cooking. I think it was like Dinty Moore. But, I was
I
like, oh,
see.
we have frozen corn in the freezer and peas, and I'm going to like mix that together with butter and put these biscuits over it and then bake them. I don't know. I just had these ideas, and it turned out fine.
Well, this is what I was getting to. It sounds like you were always improvising from the get-go,
Yeah.
not following recipes, kind of creating your own.
Yeah. I've never really, I have tons of cookbooks, but I use them for inspiration,
Right.
not really measurements. I kind of go into my mad scientist mode when I do that part.
And which one do you reckon you look at most?
Oh, God. That's a good question.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I think for me it's Magnolia.
Okay. Charlie bought me a cookbook called Jelena,
Uh-huh.
and it's like Italian pizzas and pastas and sauces. And I would say I cook from that the most.
Huh.
And also I have a cookbook called That Noodle Life that is just
Oh,
like
great.
Asian noodles. And
Oh,
it's
yum.
so good.
Let me correct myself. I say Magnolia. I also look at recipes on your Instagram page. Seriously, there's a link in profile You go there, it's very easy, and you find the recipe, and there's a few recipes of yours that I go back to over and over again.
Which ones?
It's the penne with basil and cherry tomatoes. I
Okay,
think.
yeah. So simple, but
and
so
crushed
good.
red peppers. It's the crispy chocolate chip cookies, but I substitute a browned butter for the regular butter that's in
Ooh,
there,
Good move.
which is super nice. And oh boy, it'll come to me. A couple others. I think there's another pasta recipe I look at a
I
lot.
feel like I turned the
Yeah.
tables. Now I'm interviewing you.
Yeah. Yeah. Baker by Nature for people at home is
Yeah.
the Instagram. I mean, it's the brand name.
It's the
Really?
brand name. Yes.
It's nice.
Thank you.
And I'm not sure I noticed. Is there a logo that goes with that?
There is a logo. Yep.
Oh, is it this lovely bee on the book?
It is the bee. It's a little bit different on the website. So that's sort of the symbol, and then there's the logo at the top of the website.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to go check that out.
The branding, if you will.
Yeah. Well, and do you think about that much? Like how your branding is being expressed and the design and the elements that you own?
I tried to. I worked with a great designer who redid my website, and she did all of the design for the book. And it was actually super helpful because she made me realize all of these things, these consistencies about myself that I don't even think I realized. But over 3 months, she's like, you keep going back to these colors. And all of your food photography is on the back of these colors. And so there was a natural brand kit, if you will, already built in.
Right.
But seeing that has made me feel like
That's
this,
nice.
like, oh, I don't need to even try to do anything like that because that doesn't fit in.
Right.
And so now just sort of working with what I do best and what fits in the brand and not trying to do everything.
Well, all right. Well, let me ask this. In your book of recipes Home for the Holidays,
Mm-hmm.
what recipe is in here that you thought, oh, that doesn't fit in, but you just couldn't leave it out, if any? Like, what's the weirdest recipe in there for Baker by Nature brand?
Maybe the Italian hoagie platter, but for me, growing up, that was such a part of our holiday traditions that
Italian hoagie platter.
well, because it's so East Coast too.
Right.
People are like hoagie, but yeah.
Right. All right. A couple more lightning round questions.
Oh, God.
'cause
Okay.
We got one more minute.
Okay.
Why do I need to add the eggs one at a time and beat well in between the addition when I'm making a cake or whatever?
Adding them all at once doesn't let them cohesively beat in. You should also be stopping and like scraping the side of the ball.
I know.
You want
That's
all
what
of
they
your
say.
ingredients incorporating in the batter evenly.
Uh-huh.
You also want to let a lot of air get into the batter so that it rises. So beating the eggs in one at a time is going to help your cake rise in the oven.
All right.
Don't skip it.
Good. Thank you very much. And why do I need to add the flour/dry ingredients in thirds or halves or whatever? Why can't I just pour all that into the same?
Because
same time?
dumping it in all at once makes it really hard to incorporate, and you're most likely going to overmix.
Okay. And what happens if you overmix?
The gluten develops too much, and your cake is going to get dry, or whatever you're baking is going to become dry and tough.
All right, good. And now we're out of time. Ashley Manila, Baker by Nature, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so
and
much for
bringing
having
this
me.
delicious drink. BakerByNature.com, Baker by Nature on Instagram and all other social media. And go to her website and get this book. It's gorgeous.
Thank you so much.
Will you sign it
Norm.
for me?
I will, yes.
Thank you. Everybody have a great Friday night.